Good morning, Jessica.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this Mommying Monday conversation. I appreciate your time.
No problem.
Why don't you just start by sharing a little bit about yourself?
Okay. My name is Jessica Fauntleroy. I'm a clinical social worker. I'm a mental health agency owner. I'm an author. I will call myself a mogul, mental health educator, and an influencer, a mental health influencer.
Well, it's a lot of titles.
Right.
Busy woman.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be busy.
Yeah. But I think the title that we are going to focus on most today is that of a mother. So how Um, why don't you share what has been the best thing about being a mama?
Okay. First of all, I have three children. They are 18, 16, and 12. I have two girls, the 18 and 16-year-old, and 12-year-old son. I also have an 8-month-old granddaughter.
Yes. I've seen those pictures.
And
Congratulations, she's adorable.
thank you so much. And so you said the best part about being a mother?
Yep.
Okay, so I did. Okay, so for me, the best part of being a mother has been, again, because my oldest is 18. I've been doing this for 18 years. And so I guess I would say raising my children, spending time with them, learning and watching them grow as people. Um, that's the part that I've like, the most. I wouldn't say that I'm one of those people. Well, when I had Serenity, my oldest daughter, people didn't talk about motherhood in the same way that they do now.
Mm.
And then I was 23 when I had her, which made it brought a whole different perspective to it. And so at the time when I first had her, it wasn't, all of these mommy movements and mommy care and
Mm.
really anything. I kind of was isolated for the most part, except for until she went to till she turned 3 and went to like preschool and like dance and stuff like that. Um and even then a lot of the mothers were a lot older than I was when I was taking her places like that. And so I kind of had to create my own lane and my own way to like motivate myself because I can't say that I was surrounded by people that weren't my age group that had children. And because I had my second daughter when I was 24. So I had two children by the time I turned 25. And so again, I was still kind of young. And
Mhm.
so I can't say that I had so many peers, that had the same situation. And so I just had to create my own lane, so to speak, um for how I raised them. And I'm glad kind of because um now, with the rise of social media, because when I had Serenity, people wasn't even on social media yet.
Mhm.
Social media wasn't really a thing in 2005. And so you didn't have this cookie cutter image of what certain things should look like. And with me being an older millennial, I graduated high school in 2000. So I think that also has a big thing to do with it because I'm somewhere in between the digital and the analog generations. And so I look at things a lot differently. And so I have a little bit of Gen X in me, some of the Gen X ways, especially because I'm like a beginning millennial. And with that being said, you know, um, I always have wanted to just very much be in my own lane as a parent this whole time. Like just I wanted to raise my children to be logical thinkers, people that were independent, that had their own perspective, that did not look for validation in outside society. Because a lot of those things were the things that I experienced growing up, as, like I said, a late Generation X, early millennial uh, girl growing up in Baltimore. And so for me, it was more about raising them as people. It wasn't about that old school that I grew up around, which was like children are to be seen and not to be heard. Not really preparing children for reality, teaching them communication skills, and just critical thinking. And I always had a problem with that as a child. Like I was always just over it, over everything. When I was a child, I did not like the way that children were treated when I was a kid. As far as like in my community, I grew up in West Baltimore in an impoverished community, and people just always act like children and family was a drag, and that like children were like a burden, like a barrier or whatever. And so I didn't want to, and that's how I always felt, as a child, just because of just I'm not saying that everybody was like that, but I'm saying that that appeared to be the collective attitude in my community at that time. And I just really just wasn't rocking with that at all. I thought that was whack. And so, when I had kids, I was like, I'm doing it different. Like I want my kids to know that I really like them. I love them. I care about them. It's not just about the old school way of like, yeah, I keep a roof over your head. I put food on the table. I put clothes on your back. Okay. And then we got, it's like, it's just really layered for me. So the best part for me about being a mother is now that my kids are older, seeing the fruits of those conversations and that perspective, because they are a lot more. I feel that my children are very emotionally mature for their ages. Their thinking skills are very advanced because I've always taught them, like I've always allowed them to make decisions. It was never me saying barking orders. It was always us having conversations and then being able to make a decision, a logical decision,
Yeah.
my guidance, and so that has been the best part for me.
I love that. And thank you for uplifting, like wanting your kids to know that you love them and you like them. I think that resonated a little bit with me, just because, as a kid, I did grow up feeling like my parents loved me, but not that they liked me. And I did feel a little like a burden. My parents were young when they had me. I was the oldest, and you know how that goes. So
Hmm.
it did sort of feel like I was a burden to my parents. And I do think I show up with in my own parenting with my own boys, wanting them to feel loved and liked. So thank you for lifting that up.
No, no problem.
And so on the other side of that mommy and coin, what has been the most challenging or difficult or surprising thing for you in motherhood?
Um, the same thing, like just like unlearning a lot of the things that society taught us about motherhood, um, and about children, and about how children learn, and about what's best for children and like what's best for mothers. So to me, that has more so been the most challenging part, not the children at all. The children haven't been challenging at all. It has been just like unlearning things and like constantly reminding myself to unlearn certain things, that just because it's been that way doesn't mean it has to stay that way. And and standing on that, again, especially as my kids get older, because like they have picked that up, especially my 17-year-old. I mean, soon to be 17-year-old. She has really picked that up. She is a very intimidating young lady in this world, and I'm really happy about that. Because people will know never, ever, ever to play with her, ever. And that was the most important thing I wanted from my children, is to be strong and to be able to speak up for themselves, because so many people in this world are not, and they're just too afraid to, or whatever. I just wanted my kids to be very much unapologetically themselves, and so constantly just unlearning what I was taught, and just like again creating my own definitions, and being okay with that. Because when I was younger as a mother, I wasn't always okay with like saying why I did the things I did, and like going toe to toe with people about it, especially like elders, people who might not share the same perspective as I am, that who people whose initially whose opinions very much meant a lot to me. But the older that I have become and the older that my kids have become, I I don't care. I care. Of course, I respect
Yeah, yeah,
my elders and I respect people, but I also know how to verbalize the reasoning behind my decisions and also not back down off of it. You know what I mean? I can be respectful to you, but let you know, like, no, this is what I'm doing.
yeah.
You know, you do what you do over there in your family, and I'm gonna do what I do over here in my family.
Mhm.
And that's just really that, so
I love that. And the this conversation is just resonating with me so much. So I just want to lift up the thing that stood out for me was the unlearning that can come with parenthood. We grow up thinking that the way that we're growing up is the norm, right? Like that's the standard. And then as you get older, you realize that people are being raised different ways. And then you have your own kids and you realize that you can, do things differently. And one of the conversations that I was having with another mother is about how much raising kids is also about acknowledging who you are and dealing with your own stuff.
that's what most of it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for
And
lifting
and
that up.
and I think that that's a really good. I feel like that is a conversation that needs to be held more because so many people run to motherhood because they don't know who they are sometimes, and they think that that's going to help them define themselves.
Mm,
But as you have your children and they get older, your slip is going to keep hanging. If you don't have a self, that is going to be exposed to your child as they get older, and they're going to be the ones sometimes to say, like, don't try to put what you wanted for yourself on me. Or it's parenting just in general in 2023. Children are different, so you
yes.
have to have a knowledge of self, and you really need that for you to teach them to have a knowledge of self. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because a lot of times we learn what we live. And for me, um, I always had like a big problem with like roles, like societal roles, like what is expected of women and like what's expected of men and stuff like that. And like that started for me at a very early age because my mother was a teenager when she had me and she just couldn't really get with it. And so I was placed in the custody of her mother. And her mother is a baby boomer or whatever.
Mm,
And she has a lot, she's male censored, very male censored, male identified. And so she would just push these expectations on me. Even I was like 9 years old, and she would like just come wake me up, like, you need to come in the kitchen and cook on the stove and scrub the woodwork. Like it would just be horrible. Like it made me hate everything about anything domestic. And
mm,
like she would do it for years, like until I moved out. I moved out when I moved on campus at Morgan.
wow.
Like it was horrible. And so I knew that for me, like textbook, Susie homemaker, all of that just wasn't something I was interested in.
Yeah.
But at first I used to feel like I had to because that was the way that it was defined.
Yeah. That's what was
Especially
modeled
when
for
I
you.
was yeah, especially when I was a younger mother. And then since I came from a broken family, I wanted an intact family. So like me and my children's father, we got married when we were 24. And he's very much one of those gender role people.
Mm,
And let's just say I almost wrecked myself before I
mm,
turned 30 years old
mm,
with trying to keep up the wife, mother, uh, full-time employee. My children is in all of these sports. Just trying to keep all of that up. And that is not who I am. But when you're in your 20s, you're not 100% sure who you are.
yeah, you
And
don't know.
so, yeah. And so, like, through trial and error, like, I just used to be in everything, wanting to be just like the most, do the most, especially when I was married. And then when I got divorced, not because I wanted to. It was not not because I wanted us to break up. We broke up because of another reason. My identity started unraveling. You know
Mm,
what I mean? Like, who am I now that I'm not a wife and I'm a single mother? Ooh, the
yeah.
scared, the dreadful word. Think I'm divorced. And then I had three children. They were, when we got divorced, my oldest was 7. My second one was 5. My son was 2 years old.
Mm, mm,
And so I had a serious identity crisis because, first of all, I'm only 30 and I'm divorced with 3 kids. Like, it's not like another 30. I'm thinking that I'm still in that space where I want to be a wife. I want the family. So
yeah.
I'm just like, I'm gonna get divorced, I'm gonna get remarried, and we're gonna do the Brady Bunch thing and da da da. Even though doing this before burnt me the hell out. Like, it burnt me out. It
Mm,
just wasn't for me. It was by the grace of God that we broke up. I'm not mad. Like, at this stage of my life, like, I'm so grateful that that happened. And because I had 3 kids, honestly, and I had so much to do to focus on, it never happened. I never got, remarried while my kids were small, which
mm,
ended up being a blessing for me because I really got to unlearn, a lot of the things through my own development and maturity over the years.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So when we broke up, I was 30. I'm 41 now. And so I'm a totally different person today.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm glad that, like, I unraveled that, like, and as a, elder in some ways, because some people be looking at me as elder. When I see young girls in their 20s and, like, you married at 23, like, 'cause sometimes you're running to that because you think that's the identity, being a wife and a mother.
Yeah.
So many people
That's
think
what
that.
society has conditioned
That's
us
what's
to
the
do and to
yes,
want. Yeah. Yep.
yes, and yes, and so, like, unlearning that to me has, like, been the biggest gift that I have given myself.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because, like, it just has been like, I'm so happy. I know that, I mean, my face doesn't, I'm not smiling with a big smile, but I love the person that I am today. I really do.
That kind of leads me into my next question. How do you love on and care for yourself?
Well, I would say that it's less about loving and caring on myself and more of a lifestyle change, a shift, like a perspective shift, like a paradigm shift.
Mm,
Because, like, as you mature and, like, I've had a lot of therapy and a lot of, like, different things I've worked through, especially my own family and the generational curses of motherhood in my family. Like, I can trace back, like, the last 3 generations of mothers, like my mother to my grandmother to her mother, like, all of them hated motherhood.
mm,
Like, it was a serious generational curse. They hated it. They hated their kids. They hated everything about it. And
mm,
I hate to say that because it's so. I hate to be sarcastic like that, but I guess laughter is the best medicine, maybe.
yes.
But, like, all of them literally, I feel like hated motherhood. Like, they felt like it was, and I've heard one of them say, call it a albatross around their neck. I've heard one of them say that out of their mouth.
Wow.
So, like, it was is this, so, like, it was just like this curse. Like, all I saw, like, was from every one of them. Like, it's like none of them liked being a mother or being responsible for a family. And so over the years, of course, I've had to have a lot of therapy about that.
Yeah.
And how that impacted me. And the main thing was how I was not like that. And so I'm like, did somebody steal me from the hospital? I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, how is it? Am I related to these people? I'm not, like, I'm nothing like this. I like my children. I love my children. I like being my children's mother. Like, we
Yeah.
can go on vacation and kiki and ka. We don't argue. We get along.
You love and like
And
them. And actually, I
yes,
something
yes,
that
yes.
stood out to me was kind of going back to these societal norms. It seems like, at least from what I heard about you being raised with your grandmother, there were societal norms, right, that they were
Mhm.
ingrained with, that they were trying to stick to, and just kind of live their lives according to what society said a wife and a mother was supposed to be, and they hated motherhood. And you did your own unlearning around those societal norms and fit your life to what you wanted it to be and how you wanted to show up as a mother and as a woman. And you are loving motherhood.
Hmm.
That just
Yeah.
that stood out to me.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, it was like it. The grandmother who raised me, she's a big part of why I unlearned everything. She. I'm not sure if you've ever seen Mommy Dearest
Mm-mm.
with Faye Dunaway about Joan Crawford.
No.
Um, or okay, maybe similar to the mother in Precious.
Okay.
She was like that. She was like that. She was a very, very damaged person, a very, very damaged person. And from small, I think she could see that I was different from everybody else in the family.
Mm,
And when I got placed in her custody, which was not because she wanted it, it was just like my mother just ran off and it was just like she had to. And it
mm,
was like she wanted it for the benefit, but does not like children and she does not like family. So it doesn't matter if you think I feel like she was doing an honorable thing, and I commend her for that. But she basically like almost destroyed us as children. I have a brother,
mm,
my and he turned out we're totally polar opposites, polar.
mm,
And I think part of it was because I could see past the things that my grandmother was saying to us. I knew that what
mm,
she was saying was not true. You know what I mean? Like
mm,
I knew that. She would say, because like sometimes I would come downstairs and she would be like, "Don't think I need you here. You remember that your mother don't want you, your father don't want you, and social services don't want you." I just be like, "Damn, it's just Monday. Like, let me get my Fruit Loops." You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And so with that said, it turned me into a very introverted person who thought a lot about everything.
Mm,
You know what I mean? It
yeah.
mainly like I don't want to be like this. Like, you know what I mean? Like my grandmother is like evil, and then my mother is so messed up from having my grandmother as a mother that she just does not want her children.
Mm,
You know what I mean? And
yeah.
so I was like, Lord, I want to be delivered from all of that. Like I want my house to be fun. And because like when I was in school, I was always just naturally bright. People would give me scholarships to fancy schools.
Mm,
And so I would meet middle class people, and then of course I would make friends. And then I'm going to my friends' houses, and I'm meeting their parents. Their parents is doctors and like lawyers and principals. And I kind of more so picked up from their parents, I guess. You know what I mean? Like I would just like, okay, I want to dress like her mother, but then I want a job like her mother, but then I want like a attitude like her mother. You know what I mean? And
You had all
so
those wonderful examples.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so it was just kind of like creating, like, I just kind of had to really literally create my own lane for myself before, like, 'cause I just didn't want to repeat what I had been around because it just like, I hated it. Like,
Mm,
I've always had like a winning spirit. Like, I feel like I came out the womb like boxing, like, what's up? You know what I mean? And so defeat and anger and rage,
mm,
I hate that. Well,
mm,
everybody hates that, but especially a person like me
yeah.
who like who wants to follow the sun. Like when you're like trying to block my sun with like darkness because of whatever your mother, my grandmother went through a lot of things with her mother. So
Yeah.
like, and then her mother went through things with her because she went through things with her mother.
Mm,
Like, so ours can almost be traced to right after slavery.
mm,
Mothers disliking motherhood.
mm,
And so that's just been very important for me. And that's why it's been so important for me with my kids that it's like, and I tell them all the time, like we like break generational curses around here, and I've told my grandmother that, and I've told my mother that.
mm,
You know what I mean? Like we do, like, babe, we might have the same last name, but this family over here, me and mine, we doing it different.
yeah. I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
so.
Well, Jessica, I told you that this conversation would be 15, 20 minutes, and I think we're over
Uh,
that. So
okay.
I'm gonna try to stick to my promise. This has been such a filling and enriching and enlightening conversation. And honestly, we could probably do another recording and talk for another couple hours.
Sure.
But is there anything that you want to share? Any like parting words of wisdom? Anything that you're working on? How people can keep in contact with you?
Yes, I'm actually working on a workshop series um that I want to start like teaching at schools and nonprofits. It's called Soft Mom Life,
Mm,
and it's about strategies for self-care and how it impacts the improved life of children.
okay, okay.
You know, just connecting how like all of these things work together. And so I'm still in the process of developing that. And you can follow me on Instagram at Restoring Destiny Mental Health, Restoring Destiny MHS.
Storing Destiny MHS.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I really appreciate it. It has been wonderful chatting with you in this way.
Oh, no problem.
All right. We'll talk again soon.
All right.